Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, good evening, folks who are in India, and good morning to the folks who are in North America. So this is a time, where we got a good time to connect with our immigration specialist, Mary Kennedy, and this is a special talk show for all the Sura listeners, viewers, and readers on the recent immigration concerns that the students are going through. So we have Mary Kennedy with us. So hi, Mary, ma'am. Good morning.
Hi, Raj. Good morning.
So I know it's a weekend and you got a time, it's a special time for our listeners, viewers about the current recent update. So we want to keep it short and simple and so that the people can come and contact you down the line. So the first thing that we would like to touch upon in today's topic is the current recent student visa issues that, so that's got into limelight. Um, can you just briefly talk about the current F1 visa situations and how the students are facing the kind of kiosk and how to handle that?
Raj, definitely sure. So the few points which we will discuss, which is a point of discussion that made us to get into the call, is about the students that got returned back, sent back to home country, 2 weeks before. That's about one of the incident that happened. Usually when you come on an F1, right, which is a non-immigrant visa, and one of the criteria that the eligibility criteria on that F1 visa is a non-intent to continue to stay in US. That's a basic difference between an H1 or an F1 visa. So we do also have an kind of a simple chart in the layman terms where we tried our best to differentiate between a H1 and an F1, which I can share it to you at a later point of time. I'm going to be very simple as possible to talk about, not in a very legal perspective, because the message is for the students who are going to be the first time to US, right? So we want to keep it as simple as possible. So in that context, I did even speak to some of the F1 students who were able to enter back after the secondary inspection that happened at the port of entry at Atlanta. So even before going into this particular incident, or to talk about on a general note, what about the F1 students who's coming to US for the first time? So you would have definitely given much more documentation in support of the visa, which is the very first criteria is the non-intent to immigrate to US. Even prior to your school supporting with an I-20 and all those documentations, the very basic criteria is your non-intention, intention of non-immigrant, which means that you are going to be a student and then you will return back to your home country. That is the purpose of the student visa. So with the basic idea in mind, then when we move forward, right, when we look into it, so then you have to have all those documentation in support of it, which means that your only goal when you come to US is to study, not much more than that, right? So, but again, with all the other inputs and everything that's going on with the social media or the WhatsApp and everything, not lesser than 2 or 3 students, we get a call to our office saying that we were working as a part-time in a gas station or a grocery store or a restaurant. And then, like one of my friends suggested, and then we were working over there. So, which is very, very conflicting and contradicting to the purpose of you entering into the country. So this is not only that, right? So then this gets spread around. My friend is suggesting all that I'm doing is to find it out where I can find that kind of a job. And I was discussing about it. So, and also the very basic intention or the very basic in the from the legal perspective of the, in port of entry, the officer would have examined is the secondary inspection, which means the first, as soon as you enter into the port of entry, so they will be asked few questions. That's a inspection that happens for everyone. Anyone who crosses the border has to enter into that first stage of it. But when you go back to the secondary inspection, is some of them can be randomly picked up for the secondary inspection, where the officer at the port of entry is going to be even more detailed in asking more related documentations and everything. So one thing you have to keep in mind is, when you're in the process of first or the secondary inspection, you don't have any basic legal rights, whatever the nation can has for you. Let it be any country. So you don't have the right to write any basic rights, because you're still not allowed to enter into the country. So in that, keeping that in mind, if you look into it, so you can't say that I have the freedom of speech. I can say no to the documentation that is requested or demanded from me. So these are the basic details that you have to keep in mind when you really, do that actually, so that, you have to keep in mind that any demands that has been, asked for you, you have to provide it. So no objection can be done on that part of it. And then on the secondary inspection, what are the documents that can be asked for and then requested for? Anything, even your phone, your laptop, and your papers, everything, whatever you have in possession, even in your pockets, and anything can be checked for any kind of a document that can be requested. So with all this keeping in mind, you have to be very, very careful. That's what, you are coming for a purpose. And most of the students, if you look into it, they come for your master's degree. Means that you already have your undergrad degree and you have a goal and a purpose, that what you're going to be coming here for, and then what is that you're going to do. So with all this in mind, you have to be very much prepared for what can be anticipated. That is the main purpose of this call. So if there are this kind of a students, 20 students, 21 students has been retained and then had been sent back on the same day, it creates a lot more of fear and an emotions revolving around that. So that's not the purpose of this. All that we wanted you on this call is to see that you have to be prepared. So with all this secondary inspection, so you have to be prepared in a way that any point of time you're going to enter back US, you're going to go through that process of secondary inspection. So in that mind, you cannot even just a simple inquiry about, oh, my friend says that there is an availability for work. All that I asked for was, is this, where is this place? Are you working? We think that this is a very simple statement, but no, it is violating the purpose and the intention of what you're entering into US. The main intention that you have is a student visa. And when you're a full-time student visa, unless your school goes through the process of approving you, the first step is the CPT. So without that, you cannot be eligible, or you cannot even look for an options to work or anything. So in that case, even the simple questions will lead you to a very big trouble. And not only you're sent back to your country, I don't have the much details of each individual, whether there is a ban on their entry, which means that you cannot even enter into US on any other visa category. Let it be a visitor visa, or for example, you say that, so then you're not eligible for a student visa, then why don't I try for a H1 visa? Because you have an undergrad degree and you have some kind of an experience where you can qualify for the H1B visa. But if the port of entry officer has said that you can be banned for 3 years or 5 years of entry into the United States, then probably that you had been banned of any visa that you're going to be eligible for. So keep that in mind. The consequences are very high. And so you have to consider that when you are planning and preparing yourself for the entry into US. You would have done a very great job of qualifying you for the visa, F1 visa. That's where the consulate has approved you for the visa. But the second step is so much important and crucial. that you have to be prepared for it, that you can be inspected of. So you know that you're not supposed to work. So in that case, what else you are supposed to do? All that matters is finding the school, the place, and then, focusing on that too. Get your studies going, and the school has many other options for you to help you out with your CPT, which is the, on campus, the school has to approve the process and everything. Even we can do much more videos in the coming days where we can elaborate it. What is the criteria for the CPT, OPT, and how you can continue being on a student, and what are the very basic criteria. All that sometimes I see them violating the student status and coming back to the reinstatement is for in not able to inform the school of a change of address, change of job. So all those other details we can definitely have it in another call. Raj, I would ask you to have any other questions, or you want me to add any more details into this?
Oh, Mary, I think it's loud and clear that any students that are coming here, it's for a purpose, and be strict to the purpose, and get into the employment only when it is authorized. So that's a primary, and be more specific at the port of entries and even the secondary visits. Be clear with the point. So maybe one point that probably would like to stress upon. You said that during the port of visits or even the secondary visits, so the officers can check your laptops, mobiles, and all the necessary papers. So how to handle that? So with that we will close the session for today, and probably we'll have a deeper conversations with the right set of audience that so we're coming. So we got a good response from few folks. But the timing was not so well aligned. So that's where we had some challenges from the students that who are aspiring to come. So they were not able to join here, but they would like to set up some time with you. So I'm working with them on that. But my only point would be, so when the port of entry happens, or during the interview, or so after the second, maybe at the second level of inspection, how formative that they need to be and how professionally they need to handle. If you want, we can handle that later also. That's not a need of the hour at this time though.
No, actually, I'll just continue with that and complete it, Raj, because that's very important to complete the session, right? We said at the secondary inspection period, and I said, again, I want to insist that not everybody has to go through the secondary inspection, but at the same time, there is a possibility that too when you're coming for the first time. And at the secondary inspection, so you have to wait for a very long hours. It's not the purpose of the port of entry officer to make you to sit. It is because of the lesser number of people, and then also it's a very detailed process that happens at the secondary inspection. So they will take your phone and you don't even know what is going on. So they can go through all the details of what was the communication that has happened in the past 1 year, 2 years. And I have seen people, even officers, going through the messages of 2020, 2021 from your, phones and everything. So it takes a lot more of time. So by the time you don't know what's actually happening, so you'll be mentally and physically very much exhausted by the process. You don't have any access. You're in a very closed space where you don't know what's happening, anticipated and everything. But all that I always say that is don't be stressed out, don't be anxious. Whatever has happened is going to happen, because based on that, some of them take a decision either way. They'll say yes to something which way they didn't do it. All that they wanted is to either go to country or their home country, or just to enter US. So don't make those hasty decisions. Just think through it, and whatever the truth that's going to happen, and then just accept it and acknowledge it. As we are talking about this, we had an incident. I just want to say this so that people can understand the intensity of what they are doing at the secondary inspection level of it. So there was a proper H-1B visa that was done for one of our clients, and he's related to the president of the company, which is very fine. There are many cases which we file for it. They are very qualified people, and there is a job opportunity that has been offered to them, which is also very genuine. So he was filed under the same category. And so he got it picked up, and he has a very good experience. He was working in, like working, and then he was very much, experienced and qualified for the job. Everything was very well, a qualified person, I would say, individual. So all that he did was he just, like when he was entered into the Chicago airport, which is very, very calm, and there is very little more strict as well. And so they had, like the port of entry at the secondary inspection, he was taken over there. And then the officer asked him a question he didn't know. It's a very generic question, which is asked to everyone. Are you related to the company? He said no to it, which is not right, which is a very basic thing, and, which is not correct at all. And then he said, okay. And then he took the phone, and then he took it out. And then as soon as he saw the phone, the message he had put it to the owner was, landed Chittappa, which, if you know Tamil, that's uncle, dad's brother. Then he Googled it, the same word, and then he said, like, oh, that means your uncle, right? And then they took him in, and then, he was not sent back to the home country, but he was paroled into the US for 30 days time period, actually. So then it happened that, like they had two different attorneys fight for them, because he was qualified, everything was good. So why did I have to be, banned? But they fought for it. He had an personal inspection with other attorneys. See, you don't even have the basic legal knowledge here. Is you don't even have the right of an attorney at the port of entry. Means you don't have any rights, actually. So with that in mind, they allowing even an attorney to speak for you is something the officer decides, his discretionary rights. So then, but he was given that right, but they couldn't win the case. So he was banned for 5 years into US for a very simple reason. So that's much intense your, acknowledgement of truth is. So you have to be so careful when you have to do, when they ask the questions, if you're not understanding it with the accent or what it is with your, as I said, it's a stressful environment. You had been there for 8 hours, 9 hours in a closed room. In some cases, even it's more than 14 hours, 15 hours, because they go through all the messages and they have only one officer. So he has to take his breaks and then go through all the documents, details and everything. So be careful and acknowledge and then accept, talk the truth. But if that is not the truth, don't say yes to it so that, like you'll just getting away with the situation. That's not the purpose of it. Stay strong, stay confident. Whenever you answer, be polite. That's very, very important. Be polite. There is nothing question of being rude or anything. And we just don't have the right to talk back. So be very honest in your questions and then address it. That's so important. And as I said, don't do something, again, I insist, don't do something which is not the correct intention and the purpose of the visa that you're granted for.
Great. So very valuable, very much valuable information, Mary. So to the point, the summary, 3 lines, right? So be honest and keep open. And second, don't get panic. So the interviews and inspections are quite common for anybody. So you don't have to be nervous about it. And third, you're here for a purpose and be for that purpose. I think that's a quick summary. Mary, I think those are really valuable input. So, but so people get so panicked and so they create a confusions and they get into problems with that. I think but what you nailed down to the summary is very, very clear and to the point. Thank you very much. With that, I think I would like to call off for the day, and we will have more deeper conversations with Mary Kennedy, immigration specialist Mary Kennedy, down the line. And particularly on this segment about students, I would love to bring more students and bring more inputs on their journey, their experience. And I mean, being here in your students, that is a first step of your journey in the US. So particularly when you're coming as a non-immigrant on a student visa. So as Mary was referring, CPT, OPT, and down the line, the visa extension. So there would be a lot of point. So having a right consultant and right mentor on the immigration side would definitely makes a life better. So I've been I've been traveling with Mary Kennedy for last maybe 7-8 years. So she's been very helpful, very reachable, and her team is very knowledgeable. So I request all the students to take this as an opportunity to interact with Mary Ma'am's office and get your questions and concerns clarified. We'll share the details and we'll provide the details down the line and in the flyers and Facebook, through Facebook and social media. So, and we're going to publish our articles in our magazines in the coming days. So look forward to hearing back from you soon and having more students engaged in kind of session. So with that said, calling it off. Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you very much. Thank you to you, and thanks to your team, Radhika and Sanjana, for being part of this. And have a great weekend. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah, hold on, Mary.
Yeah, sure.